In this very long overdue video, probably by 5 years, I talk through the carnivore elimination diet, what is the carnivore cure protocol, how to follow it, what to do. And if you get to the end, I promise you there will be good stuff. I now eat a lot of meat, and so do they. If you want to thrive, you need to eat meat. Meat is required. Hey guys, my name is Judy Cho and I'm board certified in holistic nutrition. And I have a private functional medicine practice where we focus on root cause healing. And it often starts with the Carnivore Cure's all meat elimination diet. So I've been saying that for over 5 years when this book came out in 2020. I can't believe it's been 5 years. And I've been saying I'm going to have an updated version soon. And we should have the draft version done by the end of this year. In this book, there is a complete elimination diet, how to do it, what it is. And so today, in celebration of changing our practice name to Empower Functional Health, I wanted to walk through what the carnivore elimination diet is because I don't think I've ever done an episode that walks you through it. Before we get into the carnivore all meat elimination diet or the carnivore cure protocol, I do want to tell you that we have shifted from a Nutrition with Judy practice to reflect what we do in terms of holistic health, gut healing, carnivore as a nutritional therapy, and then also focusing on mind, body, and environmental illness such as Lyme, SIRS, mold illness, and chronic inflammation such as mast cell or MCAS. There are a wide range of things that we now work on, not only just gut health and autoimmunity. We focus on getting people to root cause healing in chronic illness and people suffering from chronic inflammation. Our practice, whether it was Nutrition with Judy and now Empower Functional Health, we run everything by our core values. And one of our core values is communication. And then the first and foremost one is trust and integrity. I run my whole life, my practice, the community I support, and everything I do in my life by having trust and integrity, because if everything is truthful, I never have to remember a lie. Beyond that, I am raising two boys and I don't ever want to be a person that shares things or a type of person that I would never want my kids to emulate. So I try to live as if, I know this is kind of silly, but I try to live as if there's a small video recorder on my shoulder and watching sort of what I do every day. So even if no one's watching or listening, am I living a life that I would feel has integrity? And so we run our practice that way. And one thing I like is to share full transparency and be fully candid. One thing I want to bring up is that as a functional medicine practice, our prices do reflect those of a functional medicine practice that does holistic health. We have chosen a model of care. I like to call it the barbell theory. I grabbed it from the business world. But basically, if you think of a barbell, we support with a lot of free content, a lot of free stuff. There's no paywalls for our evidence-based research articles. And then we have all our free guides and a lot of things that we honestly give out for free. And then on the other end, we service the other side, which is maybe the hourly is a little bit more pricey. And so maybe instead of us working with two people, we can work with one and then focus on areas that we could support a broader population. That's how we are trying to do wellness for all. And we don't then service a lot of the middle. And it's because as a leader in my practice, I have to protect my team too, because when you are supporting other people, it can be hard. And we love the people we serve, we love the work we do, but there is a reason why a lot of people that get on social media that become big end up closing their one-on-one practices. And it's because we are also human and individuals, and it can be hard on us. But I think that the answers, and it is in the canary in the coal mines that are able to give us a lot more answers. And if we can find the nuanced, most specific answer for the most complex case, then if I can find or figure out that issue or that root cause answer, then we can service everybody. Because then for the majority and the rest of the people, if we give out evidence-based research and our clinical pearls, for the most part, most of you can follow that, not work with us, and then find healing. And that is the balance we do in our practice. So given all that, that is why we give our information about the carnivore elimination diet or the carnivore cure protocol out for free. So even if you don't have money to buy this book, that lists out the carnivore elimination diet. Even if you can't afford it or pay for it or want to pay for it, great. We will give you the carnivore elimination diet, the protocol that you can follow it. So this is me just being fully 100% transparent and candid in how we service everyone, hopefully, through this whole barbell theory. Okay, so I'm going to walk through a little bit of this carnivore all meat elimination cheat sheet. It's basically the Carnivore Cure protocol. It's what is in this book. So while Carnivore Cure actually came out before this carnivore study came out, I think it's really powerful, even if it was a questionnaire. And one day soon, our practice will share some of our data that we collect, blood labs, functional tests from carnivores, and we can share also the improvements we see from a carnivore diet. But in this questionnaire, you can see that there have been tremendous benefits in following a carnivore diet. There were 2,000 people that followed for 6 months. And then in those 6 months, there's 98% said they improved their conditions related to diabetes, 96% improved GI symptoms, even though they're not eating any fiber, 96% improved psychiatric symptoms, 93% improved or resolved obesity or excess weight, 93% improved hypertension or high blood pressure, and then 84 to 100% reduced their diabetic medication use. And again, this is 6 months on a carnivore diet. One thing I want to note is that most of the people that were asked to fill out this form did give some of their blood work, but of these 2,000 people, most people did not eat grass finished and most people did not eat organ meat. So it is not, again, necessary to eat the highest quality or the most expensive or all the organ meats to find these benefits on a carnivore diet. Given that our practice in Power Functional Health, we do work with some of the people that carnivore doesn't heal enough. And so one of the ways that we try to fine tune carnivore is by doing it as an elimination diet. This is the Carnivore Cure at a glance. I know it's super small. I promise you, you can pause this part and take a close look at it, or I'll share how you can get this later on. There are different phases in the carnivore all meat elimination diet. You can see there is phase 1, there's phase 2. Now, I know you can ask, which basically I would ask myself is, how do you know that those meats, so boiled beef, lamb, venison, bison, elk, limited organ meats of animals listed, animal fats from ruminant animals, so no rendered fats, filtered water, meat broth, and salt. How are those the meats that you chose for phase 1 versus phase 2? And so I can actually show you my receipts. Okay, so many, many years ago, right after we released Carnivore Cures, the book and the all meat elimination diet, we then went through all the various diets. So you can see here there's AIP, GAPS, WALS, Whole30, FODMAP, gluten, SCD diet. And then we went through on the other side where this blue bar is, then we went through all of the different anti-nutrients that are known to cause imbalances for some people. We painstakingly went through every diet, every food product, and literally I'm showing you just the meat, but we have it for seafood and nuts and vegetables. And so it was through this data that we then created Nutriment, which is the food database. You can access it for a small cost on a monthly basis, and you can see what meats that you're sensitive to. What I think is really cool about Nutriment is that if you know that you're sensitive to tomatoes, onions, and certain foods, you can see then, oh, what do these foods all have in common in terms of anti-nutrients? And then you could see, okay, so what other foods fit those anti-nutrients? And maybe I should start removing that if you don't want to go super strict with the carnivore all meat elimination diet. This thing is where we got our data. So we basically reviewed all elimination diets that have some reputation, that have some evidence-based research, and then we considered all of the anti-nutrients, what meats have certain levels of anti-nutrients, and there was some level of nuance, and that is how we ended up creating not only the Nutriment web-based app, and I'll put that in the show notes, then we also created the Carnivore all meat elimination diet. So going back to these phases, I'm going to make it super simple for you. What we really mean by these phases is that if you're not feeling well, like you've done carnivore with the rainbow of meat, so seafood, chicken, pork, beef, and you're not feeling well enough, then considering a carnivore all meat elimination diet is something that may be more realistic for you to see, is food the only culprit of my chronic illness? And so phase 1 goes down to more of a very simplistic view. It's sort of that beef, salt, and water view. So it's ruminant meat only, salt and water. And then as you feel a certain baseline of health, I love tracking. And if your symptoms, let's say you have fatigue, joint pain, and you number them. And I will show you a table of how you can do this numerical system. But if you were to range them from 10 being the worst and then 1 feeling the best, if you were to say, oh, right now I have a 10 in chronic pain, then maybe as you do the phase 1 approach, it goes down to a 2. And so it'll be up to you if you want to stay at phase 1, or if you say, okay, I think I'm ready. Now I'm going to introduce things from phase 2. Let me zoom in. So then phase 2 is organic turkey, egg yolks only, so no egg whites, ghee or cultured butter, and then animal fats from beef and turkey alone. So the goal is that you are starting to stack other foods that you can bring in, because I think holistic health or optimal wellness is that you should be able to eat all the rainbow of meats without a reaction. And if you can't, there's probably something more underlying than diet alone. And we've just seen it with the 2,500 clients and patients we have worked with. I'm not going to go through all the different phases. You can, again, get this handout. I will put it in the notes. But phase 3 has pork added. Phase 4 has the organic pasture-raised chicken. And then as you go down the phases, can you tolerate conventional meats? And then phase 6 and beyond, I really want you to see if you could tolerate, more of the processed meats. Not that those are ideal to eat, but just so that how much can your immune system tolerate? So that's cured meats, canned meats, even conventional processed meats. So that's how this whole Carnivore Cure protocol works. I'm sure you guys have seen this. This is our Carnivore Elimination diet food pyramid. This is ideally how and what you would eat long-term on a carnivore diet. And then as you are healing, if you want to add in a little bit of veggies or a little bit of fruit, that is totally up to you, because the perfect diet is what makes you stay consistent and allows you to thrive. This is how I view, or our practice views, the carnivore elimination diet in eating the entire rainbow. So you see that there's ruminants, and then there's a smaller amount of non-ruminants, which is pork, chicken, duck, salmon, and then you have your seafood. Seafood is so rich in minerals, so oysters, bone marrow, bone broth, small fish, these things are so important. And then obviously at the top, you have the fat and the minerals in the water and the dairy. Yes, it is ideal to eat high fat, but I just thought it was kind of weird to put fat down here. Obviously, animal kingdom only, focus on fatty meat, especially ruminant. Consume dairy and eggs if you can tolerate. I honestly like eggs because it's a very easy way to get many of the minerals that are not as common in meats. And then obviously listen to your body's innate wisdom. So that means that if you eat something and then all of a sudden you're not feeling well, you should write that down, because the tracking of that allows you to monitor and then measure how you're doing on this carnivore elimination diet. The next few pages explains, why the carnivore elimination diet. The whole summation is, by following a strict elimination diet, you can see, is diet the number one reason I'm unwell? And for many, your lever for healing will move a lot, but for some people, they need more than just diet alone. And by doing an all meat elimination diet, you can get down to the most simplest way of eating to figure out, is it really lectins, or is it really oxalates, or is it really this and that that's causing me to be sick? Or even after nutrient repletion or getting enough nutrition from your meats, and I'm still not better. Well, now I know it's not food alone. Maybe I'll still stick to strict carnivore, but now I need to pursue other things. Maybe it's trauma. Maybe it's mast cells. Maybe it's Epstein-Barr or a viral load that's causing you to be unwell. Maybe it's mold, Lyme. But if you can figure out the diet part of it, which is the biggest part, then you can start pursuing other things and knowing how to pick one lever at a time. So let's just go through Carnivore Cure's phase 1, and it tells you exactly how to eat it, how to prepare it. So ruminant meat, again, is better tolerated for individuals with food sensitivities. No poultry, pork, fish, eggs, or dairy during the first phase. Consider starting with grass-finished and pasture-raised meats. Again, this will be very individualized. Flash frozen meats are best because basically your immune system will react less to mast cells or a histamine response. And then refrain from packaged ground meat. One, it could be adulterated. They sometimes add food dyes, and it could lastly be just a bigger histamine response for those that are chronically ill. So for phase 1, foods to include, again, beef, lamb, venison, bison, elk, all ruminants, organ meats, but a limited amount. Animal fats from ruminant animals, so no rendered fats, liquid fats are harder to digest, especially if you're sensitive. If you're brand new to carnivore, it could also just go through your system really quickly and then cause an imbalance, especially if you don't have enough bile to break down the fat for you. Recommended water is filtered water. We have so many people that have worked with us that use well water and none of them have clean water. So I highly recommend, even if you have well water, to purify your water, use a good filtration system. There is no perfect system. All of the house filtration systems, some of them end up having mold. The reverse osmosis ones bind to all the minerals, so then it can kind of be considered dead water. So there's no real perfect answer. So that's why I don't really recommend a perfect one. But if you are going to use reverse osmosis, just make sure that you're taking sufficient minerals. Coffee and tea is optional. It will really depend on your adrenal function if you are sensitive to certain anti-nutrients. So you can always remove it and then bring it back. And then no seasoning. So just unrefined salt. Cooking methods, boiling is the best because it reduces the cyclic amines. It's basically any toxins from the cooked meat. It allows the meat to be more digestible. You're not cooking it on a fire, so there's just less toxins or possibilities of toxins. And you just got to figure out again what works for you. I never had to go that strict. I always used an air fryer or pan, and I'm sure there's some toxin in there. And so I didn't have to worry about it that much, but I'm also not as sensitive. We have patients that are very sensitive like that, and they have to cook their meat a certain temperature and then eat it in a certain time frame or they will feel unwell. So figure out what makes sense to you, but these are our tips that we have found again in our clinical practice that are pearls that you can then use as you're going through your own carnivore elimination diet. And see, look at that. I write here, not everyone needs to start at the phase 1 of the Carnivore Cure elimination protocol. In terms of gut health, I give recommendations. And again, all of this is in the Carnivore Cures book. So if you still have bloat, stomach pains, loose stools, and this is not because you're just transitioning to an all meat diet and reducing your insulin levels, but just that even 6 months into carnivore, you still have loose stools, you may want to avoid meats and glycosaminoglycans. What that is basically the carbohydrates in meats. And yes, meats have a little amount of carbohydrates because they can disrupt the work of healing the gut. It's the meats that have cartilage, ligaments, joints, and it just may cause a bigger impact on those that are sensitive. Again, not everyone has to worry about this. And same thing goes with bone broth. It can be a more advanced food for certain people that are sensitive. Avoid meats high in histamine. So that's bone broth, oftentimes ground beef, deli meats, aged or cured meats, meats that are in your fridge for long, and then no fermented or prebiotic foods. So no apple cider vinegar. We see so many people in our practice suffer because they hear that for gut health, they need fermented or prebiotic foods. And it is in those foods that are really rich in histamines that actually make them feel worse. A lot of our patients suffer from fungal overgrowth, and by consuming fermented or prebiotic foods, the fungus loves those foods. So we are a extreme no on all of these. Again, if you are healthy, those foods, those ferments, those apple cider vinegars may be beneficial. But when you are trying to heal, it's this irony, but it's actually not ideal for you. That's why when people are like, but fermented foods are necessary, they're actually not. That study from Harvard showed that 90 something percent healed their gut, and none of them were eating fermented foods. I touch on a gut healing kit. So these are supplements, they're probiotics, they're immunoglobulins. It's hydrochloric acid to help bring up your stomach acid and to make it more acidic. If you are having a hard time digesting and absorbing your meat, then it is not assimilating the nutrients for you. So again, if you've had gut issues for a long time, it's something you can consider. And so then there's a section on preparing for phase 2. So stay in phase 1 until you are ready to move. Maybe your symptoms are at a baseline that you feel good enough. So again, it's that measuring system. And if you're closer to 1 instead of 10 being extreme, then maybe you could slowly start adding a food one at a time. Generally, what I like is that you track with the food and mood journal, and I'll show you a food and mood journal in a second. And then if you want to add back food, the best way to do it, which is the most painful way to do it, but the best way to do it is you eat the same foods that you've been eating. So let's say I've only been eating ribeye and salt. And now I want to add back a little bit of pasture-raised chicken. So what I would do is I would get maybe half a cup of boiled chicken and then try it just at lunch. And then I would write down mood, energy, stool, gut function, and all of those other areas to see, is it impacting my health? And then if I don't feel any different, Then I'll eat it again at dinner. Again, just maybe a half a cup of boiled chicken. And then you'll do the same thing again on the next day. And then maybe you'll increase it by 1 cup instead of half. And maybe you'll start cooking it a little different. But the less different levers you pulled, then the easier it is to identify, is it really the chicken, or is it just chicken boiled that you can tolerate, or is it chicken cooked on an air fryer that you can tolerate, or is it just the dark meat that you can tolerate? So there's these nuances. By being super precise and specific, you can figure out what you would tolerate and what you don't by tracking again in that food and mood journal. I'm not going to go through the rest of the phases because again, you can get this guide as well, but for every food introduction, you want to measure your sleep, stool, mood, energy, and hormones. And by tracking again, 1 is feeling the greatest, 10 is feeling the worst, then you could see if there's any level of movement and healing. If you just write yes or no next to a symptom, you'll never know if there's been some movement of healing. And when you have been chronically ill for a long time, it's hard to say, oh, now my chronic pain is gone. So it's better to put a number against a symptom so that you can see, okay, so 2 weeks ago, I put my chronic pain at a 6 and I'm at a 4. So that is some level of improvement. And from a psychological perspective, that's still motivating. Whereas if you say, no, I still have chronic pain and you didn't put that 6 a few weeks ago, then you'll think, this diet's not working. I still have chronic pain. You could see the difference. There are sample meals that are from the Carnivore Cure book in here. So this is ruminants at 70% fat in terms of total calories and 30% protein. I'm not going to go through all of this. I do have a video on how to eat to support your hormones and thyroid. I go through a lot more nuance of that. And then calories still matter. Our issue with our practice is more that people undereat, but we need to make sure that we eat sufficiently, because if you're not fueling your body with raw materials, then how will your body properly function, including hormones? If you overeat, you can also gain weight. I know there are people that believe you cannot gain weight on carnivore. That is absolutely false. We see it all the time in our practice. And we know that leptin, which is one of the hunger hormones that impacts your weight, can get impacted other than carbohydrates. So you can absolutely gain weight on carnivore. And so there is a balance you need based on your personalized health history. I think there was research done that Menno Henselmas brought up that you can actually eat 0.7 grams per 1 pound. I just don't like saying that to our female patients because then they will go, oh, okay, I'm going to try to go on the lower end. Ideally, these are the amounts. Again, these are 96 grams of protein within a meat. It is not 96 grams of meat. So it is very nuanced. Again, I'll link to the video that shares how to eat this way. I know there are people in the wellness space that say you can eat like 1,400 calories or 1,600 calories. That is not ideal long term. You are eating the same as someone that is 4 years old or 8 years old. We should not be eating only 1,400 calories. In celebration of launching Empower Functional Health, we updated this Carnivore Elimination guide and we added this nutrient roles and deficiency signs. And I love it because I think symptoms are so important. And so it literally lists various amino acids, vitamins, and minerals, and the likelihood of deficiencies. So, for example, alpha lipoic acid is more common, and then it shares what it does, where it's found. So we only listed meats because you can find all nutrition in meats. And then what are the symptoms and manifestations when there is an imbalance? Obviously, a lot of them will sound similar, but I think it's such a handy tool to look at when you feel you may have an imbalance. It is listed alphabetically. Again, shares how often or how common this nutritional deficiency is. If the nutrient is not high in meat, we did list the supplement. For example, yes, you can get folate from chicken liver because it's higher than beef liver, by the way. But if you need methylfolate, the folate in these organ meats will not move the needle enough. So you may need methylfolate versions of supplements, especially if you have that MTHFR mutation. I want to touch on the Food and Mood Journal since I brought it up. So in this guide, if you click on this link, it shares the Food and Mood Journal. And we added sleep and symptom because I think it's so important. In the Food and Mood Journal, you would track your foods, drinks, what was your glucose, any supplements, medications you took, what was your energy like, what was your movement like and your relaxation, did you do any mind-body work, and then how were your digestion and reactions to that. And then obviously share your wake times and sleep times. So you can even notate how was your energy when you woke up that day. And if you track this, I promise you, if you track this for a week, you will start seeing things that you never noticed. For example, you might say, oh, I think I'm actually sensitive to pork rinds and maybe I should remove it because every time I eat pork rinds, I start having imbalances in my stools. So there are templates here that you can start writing in. And then there's a sleep and symptom tracker. And so this is where, again, you can track your sleep and see, was it a certain day that you had a certain food? Was it a certain stress? Was it a certain person that you got in an argument with? Was it work? Was it school that then affects your sleep? And then as you track this again, you can figure out what is impacting you. So what gets measured gets monitored, and then you can change it up. Now, I know there are people in the wellness space that can get a little OCD or even get orthorexia. So you have to know your needs and your own personal struggles to see, is it really beneficial for me to be tracking this? Okay, so this is the other thing I was bringing up. It's the session symptom tracker. So we use this in our sessions, but you can do this based on a certain time frame that you want to measure. Maybe it's weekly. I think we have one for weekly, actually. Let me see. So we have it just fully blank. And by tracking again, you can see improvement because it's so easy to feel that if you are on week 4 and your energy is still at a 5, you might feel like nothing is helping me feel better and I still have fatigue on carnivore. But in reality, you are improving and it's so easy to forget that. And that's why I love this tracking by numbers. I know you guys are going to think, so if you want to buy this guide, check the notes below, but actually we're giving this out for free. So if you made it to the end, you totally can get it for free. I will put the link in the show notes. Again, this is our barbell theory of providing this quality of content for free so that you can find healing even if you don't work with us. And then if you need that level of care, that one-on-one, yes, we're not the cheapest, but we promise you, because we have less clients and patients overall, we can provide that personalized medicine care that we should demand as people, as individuals, and in trying to get answers for our chronic illness. Because no one wants to be sick. No one wants to spend money on wellness. People just want to eat what they want and live the lives that they're meant to. And our practice, whether it's all of this free content or working with us one-on-one in our practice, our goal is to get you closer to root cause healing, because you shouldn't have to just eat ruminant meats for the rest of your lives. And if you have to, if that's the only way you can sustain your life and your baseline of health, then I personally think that there is something more imbalanced in your system that you have to find an answer for, because that's when ruminant meat alone becomes a Band-Aid. And I would hope maybe that Band-Aid will work forever, but if it doesn't, then what are you going to do when ruminant meat alone doesn't work? Because we also have patients that happens to. So I hope that as you use this elimination diet, you can figure out what is working and what's not. And then if it's not diet alone, because sometimes it's not, then you can figure out what avenue you want to go to next. And this channel, this podcast, I interview purposely people and experts in all different fields so that when you know, or when you think this is a lever I have to go through, maybe it's my body, maybe it's Lyme, maybe it's mold, then you know, okay, well, I'll watch a few of Judy's video and then I can go next with what I have to pursue for this next lever. And at least I know that is not the diet alone. But I hope that this video helps you to understand why a carnivore elimination diet is important, especially if you're not getting the healing that you thought you would have doing a carnivore diet. And then once you do the elimination diet, you can rule out, is it diet alone? And oftentimes with chronic illness, it's not. Still, the diet is fundamental for health. Even if you have some other illness in your body, something else causing inflammation, you have to fundamentally feed your body the right nutrition, the right assimilation of nutrients, fuel the immune system so it can even fight the fight. So that's where carnivore is always on the table. Okay, guys, make sure to get the guide. It's in the show notes. And make sure to eat a lot of meat. Take care of your bodies because it is the only place you have to live. I will talk to you later. Bye, guys.